What I can, I mean, the answer today is no different to the answer a week ago, you'll be pleased to know, because I said some tough things in the campaign because I meant them, and I wasn't going to do what others had done, which is to say sweet things on the way in, only to do a press conference like this 2 days later or 3 days later saying we can't do any of that. And so two-child benefit is an example of that difficult decision. Absolutely understand how difficult it is, how important it is, and I'm not shying away from that. But you know, we intend to have economic stability. We intend to ensure that we stick to our rules, and that is why I can't make a commitment on the two-child benefit. What I can say is this: we have, and we're already setting up the child poverty strategy, which will deliver a reduction in child poverty. I'm determined to do that. It will be a measure of what this Labour government does, just as it was a measure of the last Labour government that drove down child poverty. I don't want any child living in poverty. And so that strategy will be developed, and as soon as we're able, I'll share with you more details in relation to that. But the fact that I can't make the commitment on the two-child benefit does not mean that we're parking the strategy on reduction of child poverty. On the contrary, it makes it all the more urgent, and we will be working on that and started on that already. Look, the Rwanda scheme was dead and buried before it started. It's never been a deterrent. Look at the numbers that have come over in the first 6 and a bit months of this year. They're record numbers. That is the problem that we are inheriting. It has never acted as a deterrent, almost the opposite, because everybody has worked out, particularly the gangs that run this, that the chance of ever going to Rwanda was so slim, less than 1%, that it was never a deterrent. The chances were of not going and not being processed and staying here, therefore, in paid-for accommodation for a very, very long time. It's had the complete opposite effect. And I'm not prepared to continue with gimmicks that don't act as a deterrent. In relation to early release, look, we are, as I actually said before the election, we're going to have to deal with the problem we've got with prisons. There is no overnight solution to the problem. We've got too many prisoners, not enough prisons. That's a monumental failure of the last government. On any basic view of government, to get to a situation where you haven't got enough prison places for prisoners, it doesn't matter what your political stripe, that is a failure of government. It's a failure of government to instruct the police not to arrest. This has not had enough attention in my view, but it's what happened. We will fix that, but we can't fix it overnight, and therefore it is impossible to simply say we will stop the early release of prisoners, and you wouldn't believe me if I did say it. In relation to prisons and the people that are there, look, I've sat in the back of I don't know how many criminal courts and watched people processed through the system on an escalator to go into prison. And I've often reflected that many of them could have been taken out of that system earlier if they'd had support. And that is why what we want to do with our youth hubs and on knife crime is really, really important, because I want to reduce crime. I want to ensure less people are going into crime. There is a point of intervention, I think, in the early teenage years of children, young people, I think particularly boys in my experience, where we can reach in and ensure some of them do not get on that escalator. It's difficult, it's hard work, it can be done, but if you can pull people out before they get on the escalator that ends up in imprisonment, that means that they have more productive lives and that they don't have the victims of their offences. Knife crime would be an example. It is a clear priority for me on knife crime, and we will begin that work very quickly on knife crime to reduce it. But one way, there are a number of ways that are included in that, but one way is to reach out and stop people getting into knife crime in the first place. Difficult to do, but I'm determined to do it, because otherwise you and I will all sit at the back of courts watching the same people being processed over and over and over again into our prisons, where it costs a fortune to keep them there and doesn't have the same effect on reducing crime that we could have if we intervened at an earlier stage. This is not aimed at the Chief Executive of the NHS. It's a reflection on the failure of leadership of the last government. But it is a raw honesty about the state of the NHS, because we will not fix it if we aren't honest. It's a tough thing to hear if you work in the NHS. Obviously, my wife works in the NHS, as I may have mentioned, but it's tough because if you work in the NHS, you're putting a huge amount in difficult circumstances. It's unrelenting. You know, we have to be honest about this. It's broken, and our job now is not just to say who broke it, the last government, but to get on and start to fix it, which is what we will be doing, and Wes Streeting has already started on that work. Just on the first question, I'm really proud of the fact that my cabinet reflects the aspiration that I believe lies at the heart of our country, that aspiration that so many people have, wherever they started from, to make a journey in life for themselves, for their families, their communities, and ultimately for their country. And I said that at the cabinet meeting this morning, that I'm proud of the fact that we have people around that cabinet table who didn't have the easiest of starts in life, but to see them sitting in the cabinet this morning was a proud moment for me and for this changed Labour Party, and a reinforcement of my belief in that aspiration, which is a value that I use to help me make decisions. It's an anchor for me. In relation to future peerages, well, look, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We are making further appointments this afternoon in relation to the front bench. But I think you can see from the appointments I made yesterday just how important they are. You know, Patrick Vallance, I think anybody who knows him knows his commitment to delivery, James as well, and of course Richard Hermer as Attorney General, who has already taken the opportunity to make clear the importance of the rule of law in the decisions that we take and the way that we operate as a government.